Today's video is brought to you by Squarespace, my go-to for building a website and online shop. Hello dear friends, today's video shows the difference between 1 layer and 2 layers of oil paint. I started this piece about 1.5 years ago and last week decided to see if I could give it some more finesse with an extra final layer. Real quick before I begin, if you'd like to see a 30-minute tutorial of this video, along with hundreds of hours of exclusive content and monthly art rewards, feel free to check out my Patreon at patreon.com/happydartist. When I started this painting last year, I only painted 1 layer and my main goal for that layer was to practice color mixing. I decided to try to paint the whole thing using just 3 colors: cadmium red medium, cadmium yellow medium, phthalo blue, and of course, black and white. I had opted for this limited palette of chromatic primaries plus black and white because it helped me better understand color theory, especially how it pertains to color mixing. From the 3 chromatic primaries, I was able to produce varying shades of more subtle and neutral tones that make up natural human skin. But after this piece had been collecting dust in my storage closet for a long time, and I finally dug it out 18 months later, I couldn't get over how dull and rough it looked. So I got inspired to paint a new layer to smooth everything out until it was perfect. After being trained for the past 2 years at the atelier, I had a newer, higher standard for my pieces that this old painting simply did not meet. By the way, for any fellow perfectionists out there listening right now, be forewarned. If you go to a classical realism atelier, your perfectionist tendencies will be enabled and nourished until you're such a perfectionist that you're unable to even look at your old work without your eye twitching from all the glaring mistakes that are now suddenly unignorable. So thank you, teachers, for making me want to repaint all of my old work. Now for the second layer. After the painting had been sitting dry for 18 months, some of the paint had gotten absorbed into the panel and the colors became faded and matted. So to get started, I first oiled out the painting by dipping a clean brush in Gamsol. Then I mixed it with some of my go-to medium, which is a combination of oleoresin gel and linseed oil. Then I softly glazed the entire piece with this mixture that has a similar effect as a varnish. It re-wets the bottom layer just enough to breathe life back into the sunken-in bits, but does not reactivate or disturb the paint. Now all the darker values have restored their original depth and luminosity, and all the colors regained their original saturation. I let this wet painting sit for about 30 minutes before working into it right away, because when it is freshly wet, any new paint applied on top can become quite streaky. By giving this glaze some time to set, I can more easily work on top of it. With the second layer, I wasn't as concerned with using a limited palette, but rather tried to focus on smooth glazing and polishing up some minor things, like making the hair texture more realistic, fine-tuning some of the edges of her facial features, etc. In some ways, it kind of felt like I was just repainting the entire piece again. But instead of having to cover a blank white panel for the first time, I just got to go in and do only the finishing touches. To be honest, the second layer is always my favorite in the painting process because most of the major problems have already been solved by the first layer. Composition, anatomy, values, placement, etc. are usually established in the first layer and then perfected in the second layer, which I find to be the most satisfying of all. Instead of overloading my brain with juggling all these different problems to solve, I can now take my time in softly glazing smooth brushstrokes, adding pops of color, or rendering more intricate details. it's almost like I get to apply a beautiful high-def filter onto my original painting with each new brushstroke I make. In fact, I love the second layer glazing process so much that I often feel like all the steps before it are just sacrifices I must endure in order to earn the reward of being able to finally get to the second layer. I think that's why I don't prefer painting alla prima or doing quick studies, because I feel like those rough, simplified brushstrokes are always missing that final finishing touch, begging to be honed and finessed and polished until my perfectionist brain is finally satisfied. And that about wraps up today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you'd like to adopt this new and improved piece, it's now available in my shop at happyd-artist.com. And of course, you guessed it, my eternal never-ending sale is still going on in my shop, so if you'd like 20% off your order of prints and originals, just enter the code HOLIDAY at happyd-artist.com. And if you're interested in learning more about how to paint and draw, I have lots of art educational content on my Patreon page, including exclusive video tutorials, step-by-step photo tutorials, live streams, podcasts, and even surprise art gift boxes, all available at patreon.com/happydartist. I'd love to have you join my Patreon family. A big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video and supporting the art community. Squarespace is the best platform to create a professional website and online shop. Their beautifully designed templates are easy to use for beginners and look great on both desktop and mobile. I've sold my art through Squarespace for almost 10 years, and I can attest to the quality of their online commerce features, whether you want to sell digital or physical items. They also provide useful analytics that help you make the most of your online business. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/happydartist to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Also, if you want to check out more artworks, works in progress, and just random daily artist adventures, feel free to check out my Instagram, and you can follow me at the handle @happydartist.